This happened a few years ago. I was 34 then. I took a break from my job as a wildlife researcher to find inspiration for my next book. I went camping in Denali National Park in Alaska. The camp was tucked away in the woods. It was peaceful at first, just me and the towering pines. I set up my tent and made a fire. The woods were quiet. I enjoyed the sounds of nature. I remember feeling relaxed. The sun dipped away, and the night air became cold. The distant calls of animals surrounded me. I felt small but safe, or so I thought. On my second night, I woke up to a rustling noise. I sat up quickly, heart racing. I pointed my flashlight into the dark woods. Nothing was there. I thought it was probably a deer or something. But something felt off. I returned to sleep but couldn't shake that uneasy feeling. Each night after, I heard whispers and laughter that didn't seem human. I brushed it off as my imagination, but it kept growing louder. I noticed strange symbols carved into tree bark nearby. They didn't look like anything I had seen before. I felt a chill run down my spine. Was someone else camping nearby? I started looking for signs of other people. I found nothing. One day I wandered deeper into the woods, following a path that didn't feel right. I stumbled upon an old campsite. There were abandoned tents and gear scattered about. It looked like it hadn't been used in years. My heart raced. I called out, but nobody answered. I felt cold. A sense of dread washed over me. Where was everyone? I turned around and thought I saw shadows moving between the trees. I convinced myself it was just my mind playing tricks. But then the laughter returned. It echoed around me, coming closer. My breath caught in my throat. I picked up my flashlight and ran back to my tent. I felt watched. That night I heard a voice whisper, "Matt." I froze. It sounded just outside my tent. I didn't know what to do. I called out, "Who's there?" But the voice just laughed. It echoed, teasing me from the shadows. I slammed my eyes shut, wishing it would go away. The laughter faded, but then it came right beside me. "Why are you here?" it asked. I turned to ask, "Who are you?" But when I opened my eyes, nobody was there. I was terrified. I grabbed my phone to call for help, but there was no signal. I could only hear the whispers growing louder outside my tent. I tried to block it out, but it was impossible. I lay there, heart pounding. I wanted to leave, but I was too scared to move. As dawn broke, I felt a sudden silence. I peeked outside, half expecting to see someone. There was nothing but trees. But then I noticed more symbols on the ground, marks I hadn't seen before. They seemed to point deeper into the woods. I didn't know what to think. That wasn't the last time I heard the laughter. But now, all I have are memories of that trip, and questions that may never be answered. I spent the next day trying to shake off the unease that clung to me like a shadow. I needed to focus on my writing and get back to the reason I came out here. I pulled out my notebook and sat by the fire, attempting to work. But every rustle of leaves or chirp of a bird sent my heart racing. By midday, I decided to gather my things and take a hike. I needed a distraction. Maybe the fresh air would clear my head. I followed a narrow trail into the depths of the woods. The more I walked, the more I felt that weight in the air, like someone was trailing just behind me. At times I'd glance back, half expecting to see someone, but each time I found only empty trees and the dim light filtering through the canopy above. Then I stumbled upon a clearing that felt strange, almost too quiet. The chirping of birds stopped abruptly as I stepped into the sunlit space. In the center stood a large, flat stone, its surface etched with the same bizarre symbols I'd seen on the trees. My stomach churned. I didn't have the slightest clue what they meant. I cautiously walked closer, trying to decipher the markings. As I leaned over to inspect them, I heard it again, the laughter. It started distant but grew louder, wrapping around me like a cold mist. I spun around, my heart pounding like a drum. But again, there was nobody in sight. I yelled, "Stop!" hoping to drown it out. The laughter turned into a high-pitched giggle, ringing in my ears. Panic surged through me. I backed away from the stone, trying to shake off the rising terror. That's when I saw it. In the bushes at the edge of the clearing, something moved. My breath caught. A small figure peeked out, no taller than my waist. It had wild, tangled hair and eyes that glinted like sharpened glass. For a split second, we locked gazes. Then, in an instant, it vanished into the trees. I felt bile rise in my throat. I wanted to run, but forced myself to take a deep breath. I turned and hiked back, convinced I was hallucinating. I hurried down the trail, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The laughter followed me, echoing in my mind, a cruel reminder of what I had seen. By the time I reached my campsite, the sun hung low in the sky. I felt the weight of the world pushing down on me. I wanted to pack and leave, but the thought of wandering those woods alone at night terrified me even more. As I set my things down, I noticed something unusual. My tent was open. I distinctly remembered zipping it shut before I left. The darkness around me thickened. I scanned the area, waiting for something or someone to show itself. Before I could steady my thoughts, I heard soft footsteps behind me. I turned quickly. "Hello?" I called, my voice trembling. Silence answered me. But then I heard it again. The laughter, this time closer than ever. My heart raced at the sound, an eerie melody that danced through the trees. I fought the urge to bolt, to flee from the campsite into the shadows of the woods. "It's just the wind," I muttered, trying to convince myself. I took a few slow steps toward the tent, my instincts screaming at me to keep moving. Instead, I crouched low, peering around for any sign of movement. The forest seemed to hold its breath, every sound dulled, like it was waiting for something to happen. I could almost hear the whisper of the branches overhead cautioning me, reminding me I wasn't alone. That's when I noticed a small item lying by the edge of my tent. I moved closer, squinting in the fading light. It was a shiny object, about the size of a coin. I knelt, hesitating for a moment before picking it up. It was a key, old and tarnished, engraved with strange symbols that twisted and turned like the ones on the stone. My stomach churned again as memories of the clearing flooded back. A chill swept through me. Where had this come from? I hadn't brought any keys with me. I turned it over in my palm, searching for some familiarity, but it only deepened my unease. The laughter returned, fluttering through the trees, much nearer now. It was as if someone or something was circling me, testing my fear. Panic took hold. I glanced around, looking for a place to hide, but the tent felt like a flimsy shield against whatever was out there. I had to make a decision fast. I couldn't stay here, not with that laughter swirling in the air like a wicked promise. I bolted towards my car, moving quickly but quietly. Every snap of a twig underfoot felt like a warning. As I reached the edge of the campsite, I stumbled, almost dropping the key. I looked back at my tent, my only sanctuary. It loomed behind me, dark and uninviting. For a moment I thought I saw movement at the entrance. I squinted, trying to catch a glimpse, but nothing emerged. The laughter crescendoed, piercing the silence. I felt the ground tremble as something seemed to rush through the underbrush. I took one last look at my campsite, the shadows dancing in the dim light, and I felt an urge to scream. Instead, I climbed into the car and locked the door, my heart pounding. In the safety of my vehicle, I could hear the night closing around me. The laughter faded to a whisper, but it was still there, lurking just beyond the tree line. I gripped the wheel, wondering what I had stumbled into, what had been left behind in this forest. That's when the headlights caught something in the back seat. I whipped around, breath hitching in my throat. There, sitting on the back seat, was a small figure. The same wild hair and glassy eyes I had encountered before. It smiled, its grin stretched wide, and the laughter erupted again, filling the car, wrapping tightly around me as the world outside slipped away. I screamed, a sound that felt trapped in my throat. I jerked my head back to the front, desperate to escape the eyes staring at me from the rearview mirror. The child didn't move, just sat there, smiling with an unsettling calmness that sent chills racing down my spine. "Get out!" I shouted, the command echoing in the confines of the car. The child remained still, the laughter resonating with a twisted joy. My heart thudded in rhythm with the shrill echoes. A mix of terror and confusion bubbled inside me. What did it want? I slammed my hands against the dashboard, searching for a sense of control. Fumbling for the engine key, I cranked it, praying that the sound would drown out the laughter. The car roared to life, and I could feel the vibrations through my fingertips. I had to get out of there. I glanced back, trying to muster the courage to confront the figure. To my shock, it had vanished. I spun around in my seat, scanning the cramped space, but the back was empty again. Had I imagined it? My heart raced as I stared at the rearview mirror. The dark forest loomed behind me, shadows tangled among the trees. Then from the corner of my eye, I saw something flicker near the tent. My breath hitched. A shadow moved again, darting in and out of the glow from my headlights. I was paralyzed, my mind racing. Should I go after the shadow? Was there safety in the tent? Suddenly, the last remnants of courage drained from me. I felt exposed, vulnerable in the open air, as if sensing my hesitation. A sudden jolt rocked the car. I almost jumped out of my skin, but I quickly realized it was just the wind catching the driver's side door. The laughter enveloped me again, louder than before, making my skin crawl. Desperately, I shifted into reverse, my hands shaking as I gripped the gear shift. I didn't care where I was going as long as it was away from that sound. Just as I prepared to back out, my headlights caught a glimpse of something near the tent. A flickering light, beckoning like a siren song. Was it a trap? Or a sign? I felt the pull of curiosity mixed with terror. Maybe this light could explain everything, answer the questions haunting me since I first entered this forest. Then the child reappeared in my peripheral vision, a small figure standing at the edge of the beams, motionless, yet watchful. My pulse quickened, and I slammed the car into gear, full of indecision. I had to make a choice, give in to fear, or investigate the light. I gritted my teeth, heart racing. I slowly shifted back into drive, inching toward the tent in the flickering glow, the shadows struggling against the light. The laughter crescendoed again, each echo a reminder of how close the danger was. As I approached, I saw it clearly. A small lantern perched on a rock, illuminating the symbols etched into its surface. The same patterns as the key. My throat tightened with recognition, and a sense of urgency spiraled through me. That's when I saw it. A figure emerged from behind a tree, tall and dark, illuminated only by the lantern's flicker. It turned its head slowly toward me, the grin wide and toothy, and everything went dark. I sat in darkness, confusion wrapping around me like a thick fog. My chest tightened as I fumbled for control of my senses. The sudden absence of sound was disorienting. I blinked, waiting for my eyes to adjust, but it was like being trapped in a void. Then a faint outline appeared in the gloom, a blurry shape edging toward me. I panicked and slammed my foot on the gas, but the car didn't respond. Stalled. The power of the engine had vanished, leaving only the quiet hum of the forest outside. My pulse quickened as the figure edged closer. The grin was still there, stretching wider as if it thrived on my fear. "Get away from me!" I yelled, but my voice came out small and shaky. The silhouette paused and a shiver ran through me. Had it heard me? My hand trembled as I reached for the door, considering a mad dash away from the safety of the car. Suddenly the lantern flickered back to life, brighter than before, illuminating details I hadn't noticed. It wasn't just a figure, it was a person, tall and lean, wrapped in a dark cloak that whispered with each movement. But the face, that was the worst. Hollow cheeks, eye sockets that seemed to absorb the light around them, and that ghastly grin. I shifted in my seat, glancing at the rearview mirror. The forest behind me looked almost alive, branches twisting like gnarled fingers, reaching toward the car. I had to do something. I couldn't just sit here. "Why are you doing this?" I shouted, more desperate than defiant. "What do you want?" Of course I received no answer, only silence, thick and suffocating. In a moment of reckless courage I opened the door, adrenaline coursing through me. The cold air rushed in and I felt it tinged with a strange sweetness, almost like the smell of blooming flowers despite the isolation of the forest. I stepped out, heart hammering, and the figure took a step back, still watching me. I looked back at the lantern. Its glow now revealed more symbols, overlapping in intricate patterns that seemed almost alive, pulsing subtly as if sharing a hidden message. My instincts screamed for me to flee, but something compelled me to approach. What did I have to lose? Just as I moved closer, the figure raised a hand. "Follow," it whispered, the sound slithering into my ears. The sheer eeriness of it made me shudder. But before I could react, the lantern dimmed, swallowed by darkness again, leaving me doubting everything around me. For a long moment we stood in a standoff. Then, as if sensing my fear, it turned and walked deeper into the trees. I hesitated, but curiosity won over the instinct to run. I couldn't leave without knowing. With my heart racing, I followed, one shaky step after another into the black maw of the forest, the laughter echoing once more. But this time, it came from somewhere ahead of me. Then the ground beneath me shifted. I stumbled, caught my balance just in time. But I felt the shift in the earth, the promise of something more lurking beneath the surface. Each step rang out like a warning, the darkness closing in, and I realized too late that I was no longer in control. The laughter grew louder as I moved forward, pulling me deeper into the shadows, and I knew I was crossing a boundary that should never be crossed. Whatever awaited me on the other side would change everything. I pushed through the underbrush, branches clawing at my clothes as I followed the tall figure. The laughter faded momentarily, replaced by a quiet rustle, like whispers among the trees. The forest felt alive, but not in a comforting way. I wasn't alone anymore. The path seemed to twist and bend unnaturally, leading me deeper into the darkness. Each step felt deliberate, as if some unseen force was guiding me. I turned to glance back at my car, the familiar shape now blurred by distance and shadows. Suddenly, a chill ran down my spine. I was far from safety. Then everything changed. The lantern's glow flickered again, revealing a clearing ahead. I squinted, my heart pounding as I stepped into the small expanse. The air smelled different here, thick, sweet, and cloying like something decaying. I took a cautious breath, my instincts warning me to turn back. But the figure remained, standing still in the center of the clearing, silhouette framed by moonlight. Its grin seemed to widen, stretching impossibly as it beckoned me closer. "Please don't," I whispered. But my words fell into the void, unheard. I noticed something on the ground beneath my feet, dark shapes scattered across the mossy floor. I knelt down, my pulse racing, and gasped. They were bones, small and fragmented, and around them strange symbols were carved into the earth, glowing faintly. That's when I saw it. A shimmer over the symbols like light dancing on water, revealing images that twisted my stomach. Faces, each one contorted in anguish. The realization struck me hard. These were the souls of the lost, trapped forever within this cursed place. "Leave," a voice rasped, not from the figure but from the ground itself. A shudder rushed through my body. I jerked back, breathless. "Why are you here?" I yelled, my fear rising like bile. The figure stepped forward closer than before, and I could see its hollow eyes reflecting the lantern's weak light. "To take you home," it whispered, the grin unwavering. Behind it, I caught shadows moving, the shapes of those faces around the clearing, watching me, waiting. Panic surged. I turned to run, but the ground felt unsteady, shifting like it might swallow me whole. I stumbled again and barely caught myself. The trees closed in tighter, branches snapping like the laughter echoing in my ears. In a frantic search for an escape, I spotted a narrow path snaking off to the left, almost hidden beneath vines. I darted toward it, ignoring the sharp branches that scratched my arms. But the sinister grip of the forest didn't relent. I heard footsteps behind me, growing louder, swift, closing in. The whispers turned into frantic calls, urging me to stop, to listen, to join them. Just as I reached the clearing's edge, I felt a hand brush my shoulder. I turned, and the world around me warped. The trees shifted back, the lantern dimmed further, plunging me into darkness. The laughter rang out, this time filled with glee. I raced down that narrow path, heart clawing its way up my throat. I had to escape, I had to find my way back. But as I ran, I sensed that the forest had no intention of letting me go. My legs were burning, the branches whipping against my skin like angry shadows. I stumbled forward, the pathway twisting and turning as if it were alive, playing tricks on my weary mind. Behind me, the footsteps followed, relentless and unyielding. Just keep running, I told myself, though I could hardly breathe. The laughter echoed still, that chilling sound mixing with the pounding of my heart. Each brush of wind against my face felt like the forest trying to grasp me, pulling me back toward the clearing where horror waited. Ahead, the path opened slightly and I skidded to a halt. I hadn't realized how fast I was moving until I faced the edge of a steep drop. Panic surged again as I fumbled, my foot sliding over loose dirt. I clutched a nearby tree, its bark rough against my palm, and looked down into the darkness below. It felt endless. Think, think, I shouted into the void, desperate for a solution. The forest around me felt like it was listening, waiting for me to make my next move. I needed to find another way, and fast. That's when I noticed it. A faint glow pulsed in the darkness below. I leaned over, squinting, and saw what looked like a river winding through the trees. The water shimmered under the silvery light of the moon, but it was the whispers of the trees that drew me in. Their rustling sounded almost soothing, contrasting sharply with the chaos around me. I took a deep breath and stepped back from the edge. I had to find a way to reach that river. My instincts screamed at me to stay away from the unknown, but the alternative was unthinkable. I couldn't go back to that clearing. I backtracked a few paces, searching for a way down. Then I spotted a narrow trail almost lost beneath the underbrush. It seemed treacherous, but it led in the direction of the river. I hesitated, fear bubbling within me, but I was losing precious time. I had to trust my instincts, however misguided they felt. I made my way down the steep slope, the ground unstable beneath my feet. My palms were slick with sweat. Each step felt like a gamble, and I swore I could feel the breath of the forest on my neck, urging me on. I finally reached the base of the drop and fell forward. The forest floor was softer here, but still my heart raced with panic. The river was closer now, and I stumbled toward it, my eyes locked on the glimmering water. Fresh fear coursed through me as the sounds of laughter faded, replaced by a low hum, like a lullaby carried by the breeze. But my relief was short-lived. From the shadows, figures stepped into view, emerging like smoke from the night. Their faces were obscured, but I could feel their eyes digging into me, heavy with expectation. They stood in a line across the riverbank, watching. "Help us," one of them croaked, the voice tainted with sorrow and longing. Panic flared again in my chest. "Who are you?" I demanded, though my voice trembled. They needed something from me, but what? Before they could answer, a shadow shot past me. I turned just in time to see the tall figure from the clearing, its grin stretching wider than before. The moonlight glinted off its hollow eyes. "Home," it whispered, and in that instant, I understood. The figures at the water's edge were waiting. For me. If I stepped closer, I might become one of them. Desperation quelled my fear, and I turned to run again. But the river rippled, grasping at my ankles like cold hands pulling me down. I had to escape the night, but I felt like the forest had swallowed everything in between. I stumbled backward, breathless, and knew I was trapped. But somewhere in the shadows, there was still a chance, and that chance flickered like the lantern's glow, a chance to uncover the truth hidden within the heart of this nightmare. I staggered back, my heart pounding like a drum in the eerie silence. The figures at the riverbank moved ever so slightly, their fingers beckoning me closer. Each motion felt like an invitation and a warning wrapped into one. I couldn't tell if they were friendly, or if they simply wanted to replace me in their ghostly parade. "Help us!" The croaking voice called again. And as it did, something shifted in the air, a chill that wasn't just from the night. I took a breath and forced myself to turn away from their haunting gaze. The tall figure watching me from the shadows was still there, spoken words echoing in my mind like a dark mantra. Home. I needed to distract myself. Behind me, the river sang, enticing yet dangerous. There had to be something I could do to shift the balance, to reclaim my freedom. With every instinct screaming at me to run, I turned, scanning the area for anything that could help me. That's when I noticed something shining near the water's edge. It was like a piece of metal reflecting the moonlight half buried in the mud. I dropped to my knees, ignoring the dirt sticking to my skin, and grasped it tight. It was a knife, the blade dull but intact. Is this even mine? I thought, but I didn't care. I pocketed it, desperate for a sense of control in this nightmare. Standing up, I faced the river again, my fingers tightly wrapped around the hilt as if it could ward off any evil that dared approach. I need to get across, I thought. I'd have to brave whatever awaited on the other side. Without a second thought, I clenched my teeth and moved toward the shimmering water, resisting the urge to shout at the figures haunting me. The river's surface distorted as I stepped closer. The cold water splashed against my calves, pulling at me with icy fingers. Instinctively, I brandished the knife, ready to swing at whatever emerged from the depths. I didn't want to end up like those figures trapped in limbo while life passed by. But then, another sound pulled me back to focus. A crack of twigs followed by more laughter. Human laughter mixed with something darker. My breath quickened. The sound didn't come from the figures across the river, but from the trees on the opposite bank. I squinted into the darkness. What was happening? Was someone else out here? A sharp sense of unease gripped me again. I was not alone, and whatever was out there seemed to be just as interested in me as the figures at the water's edge. Then in the dim light I made out a small shape darting through the trees. It moved quick, maybe too quick, and then disappeared again. Only the laughter and whispers remained, wrapping around me tighter than before. Turn back, I muttered, but I was rooted to the spot. There was something I needed to know, something that felt vital. I had to confront whatever was lurking in the woods beyond the water, but before I could gather my thoughts, I felt a strong current pulling me sideways, urging me deeper into the river. The figures watched, smiling now, urging me forward, while shadows danced in the corner of my vision. "Come find out," they whispered, their voices blending together in a terrifying symphony. A flash of light sparked in the distance, blinding me momentarily. I blinked rapidly, trying to reset my vision, and when I looked back, the figures were gone. Only the river remained, the sound hollow and inviting. I took a step back, the reality sinking in. Time was running out. I couldn't just stand there, frozen by fear. I had to decide, accept the invitation or find my way back. But something pulled me toward the light, and I could feel it in my bones. With my breath catching, I took one more look at the river and steadied myself. Whatever happened next could change everything. It was time to confront the darkness head-on. The river shimmered, the moonlight dancing on its surface, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. My heart raced as I stepped deeper into the water, the chill biting at my legs. I gripped the knife tightly, feeling both ridiculous and empowered. As I waded further, the laughter in the trees grew louder, reverberating off the water. It felt like they were inviting me to join them in whatever twisted game they played. I glanced back at the deserted riverbank, half hoping to see the figures return, stranger yet familiar. Their disappearance unsettled me. Suddenly I heard a splash nearby. I turned swiftly, knife raised, adrenaline coursing through me. A ripple surged close. I half expected a hand or a face to breach the surface. Instead, a small animal broke free from the water. A raccoon, soaked but unhurt, scrambled up the bank and froze, eyeing me with wide black eyes. "What are you doing out here?" I whispered, feeling a strange kinship with the frightened creature. It didn't seem malicious, just as confused about this place as I was. When it finally darted into the trees, a flash of movement caught my eye again. More rustling followed, whispering voices amplifying my fear. I turned to face the looming tree line. "Show yourself." My voice, though shaky, pierced the silence. The laughter quieted, replaced by a low, haunting hum that sent a shiver up my spine. A figure stepped into the moonlight from behind a tree, a, a girl, no older than 12. Her hair was wild, tangled like forest vines, and her clothes were torn, dirty, but somehow vibrant against the night. She was staring right at me, her expression unreadable. "Are you lost?" she asked, her voice soft yet chilling. "It's complicated," I replied, hesitant. "I'm just crossing the river." Her eyes gleamed with something between mischief and despair. "But here, rivers don't stay still. They change." She pointed to the water as if it were alive. I recoiled slightly, sensing something in her words. "Who are you?" I asked, desperate for answers. "I'm a keeper of secrets." She smiled, but the warmth didn't reach her gaze. "You can hear them, can't you?" I swallowed hard. I didn't want to admit it, but I did hear them. The whispers beneath the laugh, the echoes of lives lost. I nodded slowly, fear creeping into my bones. "Then you have to choose," she said, stepping closer. "You can join the others, or turn back." The shadows around us seemed to thicken, shifting as if they had taken a breath. The water churned behind me, pulling me toward the same foggy fate as the figures. A choice loomed before me, heavy with consequence. "Join who?" I pressed, panic rising. Her smile faded, replaced by a serious expression. "The ones who cross over, or the ones who never leave." Before I could respond, she turned, vanishing back into the trees, leaving me alone with my decision. Just as the last echoes of her presence faded, the water surged again, drawing me toward the center. Suddenly, a voice shattered the tension, a familiar one that pierced my fog of confusion. "Help me!" I spun around, heart hammering anew. The call was unmistakable. Someone was drowning. The panic surged within me. "Help me!" The voice echoed again, filled with desperation. I felt the pull of the river and the shadows weighing me down. I couldn't let whoever was in danger slip away. Without thinking, I plunged deeper into the cold water. It wrapped around me like ice, but I pressed forward, determined to find the source of the cries. My heart raced, each beat echoing against the laughter still lurking in the darkness. "Where are you?" I shouted into the current, hoping for a response. "I'm here, please." The voice called back, clearer this time, almost guiding me forward. I scanned the swirling water, straining to see through the shadows. My hands gripped at the surface, searching for something, anything to reach. Then, just ahead, I caught a glimpse, a splashing form struggling against the weight of the water. I swam closer, adrenaline fueling me despite the chilling fear that gripped my insides. The moment I reached out, my fingers grazed the fabric of a shirt, and I pulled with everything I had. A boy no older than 10 emerged from the depths, gasping and flailing. "Help! Help!" he cried, his eyes wide in terror. I fought against the current as I pulled him toward the bank, my strength waning but my will unwavering. As we broke the surface together, I gasped for air, coughing out water but propelled by a surge of hope. "Hang on," I shouted, grasping his arm tightly. The river was relentless, pulling at us, but I focused on the safety of the shore ahead. I could hear the whispers rising to a fevered pitch as if the forest was furious at my defiance. With one last shove, I reached the muddy bank and tumbled onto solid ground, dragging the boy with me. Together we gasped for breath, our bodies shaking from the cold as the water swirled dangerously close, trying to reclaim its own. Thank you," he stuttered, his voice a mix of relief and fear. He looked small and fragile under the dim light of the moon, a ghost against the darkness. But the laughter rang louder now, echoing through the trees. I glanced back towards the river, and I saw them again, the figures at the water's edge, mouths wide with grotesque grins, watching us. Their forms wavered just at the threshold of the trees, shimmering with malevolence. "Stay close," I urged the boy, pulling him to my side. We scrambled backward, away from the dangerous edge. But the figure of the girl returned, drifting out from the shadows. "You took him from us," she said, voice filled with a blend of awe and disdain. Uncertainty gnawed at me. "He wasn't yours to take," I shouted, feeling boldness stealing my spine. "Who are you?" "More than you know," she replied, her eyes glinting like stars caught in a web of darkness. "And now, you must decide." "What do you mean?" I asked, dread washing over me. Stay in the forest or leave with him, she stated simply. You can't have both. Fear and rage coiled within me. This boy deserves to live, I protested. The boy trembled beside me, still reeling from the encounter. Yet in my heart, doubt stirred. But what about me? I thought, swallowing hard. What if staying meant losing my soul to this place? We've waited so long, the girl continued, her words laced with seductive intrigue. There are always sacrifices. I stared at the boy, his fragile form shaking under the weight of an unseen burden. I couldn't turn my back on him. I will fight for him, I yelled, bringing the knife out of my pocket. If you want him, you'll have to take us both. The air crackled with tension, the darkness swirling, anticipating my defiance. The girl's grin faltered and shadows shifted around her. Defiance comes with a price, she warned, stepping closer, her presence growing darker as it stole the moonlight. With desperation rising, I gripped the boy's shoulder tighter and whispered, "We need to run." I didn't want to think of the consequences, didn't want to believe that the shadows could win. Together we turned and fled, plunging back into the forest, the laughter following, mocking our escape. Branches snagged at our clothes, shadows lunged, but we pressed on, breathless. The air around us felt charged with magic, pulsing and throbbing, twisting reality itself. I half expected the ground to open up beneath our feet, or for something to rise from the darkened trees. But with each step we took away from the river, I could feel the grip of the forest begin to loosen. The laughter faded into the background, the whispers a mere echo of what had haunted me for so long. We ran until the night enveloped us in a shroud of silence. I dared to look back, hesitating for a moment, heart beating in rhythm with the darkness. The girl and the figures disappeared behind us, leaving only the hollow chorus of the wind. Had I truly escaped? I held the boy tightly, fear mingling with hope in the stillness. "Where do we go now?" he asked, small and fragile in the wake of the night's horrors. "I don't know," I admitted, glancing into the shadows, unsure of what lay ahead. But I also understood we were alive, at least for now. And just like that, I knew I couldn't stay. I needed to find a way out of this forest, whatever it meant. What I hadn't prepared for were the voices that lingered in my mind, the shadows that wouldn't let me forget. Perhaps I'd never truly escape. The questions would remain. Were they real, or just a product of my mind? And why had the night chosen to collide our fates so violently? I began to walk, the boy at my side, through the silence of the forest, still haunted by the laughter lingering just out of reach. Never had I felt so lost, and yet so determined to find my way home.